We're
Panda.
now starting the Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting. The time is 6:37. It is October the 21st. First start with a roll call. Alderman Shandelmeyer,
Present.
Alderman Huntley.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
Approve.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the Housing and Human Welfare minutes from 10/14/24?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Point of never mind, Mr. Chair. I had a point of procedure question, but I realized that we approved our minutes from the September meeting at our special meeting on the 14th, so I apologize.
No problem at all. Next item on the agenda are the appointments and reappointments. Question, who is in attendance for the appointments and reappointments?
There is only Michael Allen from the Commission of Aging. None of the reappointments are here. Two of them couldn't make it. I'm not sure about the other two or the rest of the people for the Commission on Aging.
Okay,
So-
that's no problem at all. If we could bring up Mr. Allen, that would be great. What I'll do is carry AP 3124 separate and postpone the others.
Mr. Chair, if I may, while I agree with Mr. Allen, reappointments we traditionally have not had the folks step forward. So unless you'd like them to step forward for a specific reason, we could just carry those reappointments as is. Or are you wanting those reappointments to specifically come before the board?
I want them to specifically come before us. To my knowledge, some don't want to be reappointed. So,
noted.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Allen, how are you doing this afternoon?
You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, hi. Thanks. Nice to see you guys and lady.
Wanted to give you a brief opportunity to express your interest in the commission. And
Yeah.
if there are any questions from my colleagues, we can take those as well.
Yeah. Well, I assumed that the long wait for the appointment was to allow me to more appropriately sort of age into the position. I guess it was about 4 years ago that I filled out the application and stuff to get on. So it's nice to be on. Yeah, I grew up in Annapolis, went to St. Mary's, and then as a young man went away for academic purposes, was a college professor for a number of years and returned to Annapolis as a merchant on Maryland Avenue with a shop called Third Millennium Designs for 15 years. It was sort of a art gallery and shop specializing in Art Deco through the 50s kinds of things. And now I'm still I'm a documentary filmmaker, but I also am chairman, or I guess we'd say president of the board of the Annapolis Senior Center, and we represent the 6,000 members. So I saw this as an opportunity, and I thought, well, great, this would be appropriate, given my age. I should do this.
Well, I'm not sure he gets any more qualified for this position than the chair of the board for the Annapolis Senior Center. I think we would be lucky to have you, Mr. Allen.
Well, thank you. I feel fortunate to do this with you folks.
Alderman Shandelmeyer, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to echo Alderman Huntley's comments. Mr. Allen, we appreciate your resume. We appreciate your willingness to step forward. And yeah, we're looking forward to continuing to work with you. Unless any of my colleagues have anything else to say, I'd like to make a motion to give you I see
one second, Mr. 1 second. Caitlin.
Mr. Allen, can you state your name and your address for the record, please?
Yes, it's Michael Allen, 853 Spa Road, Annapolis, Maryland, 21401.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Agree with my colleagues looking at the application that you submitted, perfect qualifications, and the interest in arts. I think that goes hand in hand. So I greatly appreciate your willingness to serve.
Thank
Oh,
you.
actually, Mr. Chairman, I do have one quick question.
Yes.
Mr. Allen, as chairman of the board of the Senior Center, do you see a common recurring thing that members who come to the Senior Center bring up as like what they'd like to see from the city?
Yeah, I I think that in general, it's such a unique situation because we have, it's positioned as it is in the old Wally Bates High School. We have a very nice mix of a cross section of the city, and one of the strengths is that it's a real opportunity to get with your neighbors who you might not normally see, and interact with them in a social way that's really, really refreshing and unique in Annapolis, I find, having been a member there now for 15 years. So I think that they're very sensitive to the ways in which neighbors get along with one another, and it's a great place, a great window on the citizenry of Annapolis at the center. I get there's nothing specific I can think of in terms of the city. Of course, everybody loves Annapolis. People that are here are here because they want to be here, and it's such a great town.
I really appreciate that. I think getting folks to interact as neighbors is the only way to build a community. So thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to put forward a favorable recommendation on Mr. Allen.
Is there a second?
There most certainly is.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your time tonight, Mr. Allen.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Kalen, can we be sure that his is sent separately? And so I just don't want it to get caught in any confusion, and so that he can start going to those meetings.
Yes, and would you like to postpone the other ones until next meeting?
Yes, please. And what I'll do is I'll make a motion to postpone those.
Okay.
So I will.
One second. I know Harry had mentioned some people wanted to come in person. Are they on this list?
I never meant to say that people wanted to come in person. My understanding from some of the folks who showed up the last time was just that they thought it was in person.
Okay. So then how about we just carry the remaining Commission on Aging members so that everybody can be sent over at once, if that's fine.
So that is
That will be AP 3024, AP 3224, and AP 3324.
all right. I agree. So motion to give favorable recommendation to AP 3024, AP 3224, and AP 3324.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Agree.
And motion, and Mr. Chair, do you have a timeline you want to postpone the Housing Authority appointments to our next meeting, or
Yeah, if we can do that into the next meeting, that'd be fantastic. I didn't have an opportunity to send appropriate invitations on my behalf, so let's do that if possible.
I would like to, in that case, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to postpone AP 2524, AP 2624, AP 2724, and AP 2824 to the next meeting of Housing and Human Welfare.
I will happily second Alderman Shadowmeyer's motion.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Fantastic. We're done with appointments. Next item on the agenda would be legislation 01124 Tenant Displacement Fund. My only question is just to the Office of Law and possibly I see the city manager has hopped on. my understanding when requesting the legislation was that it would the city would not be putting city funds into the tenant displacement fund. The what I was hoping that would accomplish through the legislation was that landlords or small and large landlords would be responsible for paying for the fees themselves. For example, we just had an incident in Woodside Gardens where mom and her children had to be moved. That was done successfully without, needing legislation. But as we all know, there have been several instances where it's difficult to access funding, and sometimes the city is responsible for that. If the law office or the city manager wanted to speak to my concern, I would appreciate that. And if it's not ready for prime time, it's not ready for prime time. I completely respect that.
Joel, do you want to address that first?
From the law office, I don't see a legal question posed. I am not, I don't have an opinion. I don't have a legal opinion because I don't have a legal question posed about, it sounds like if someone's deciding if a legislation is needed or how it could be used, that seems beyond the purview of Office of Law.
Okay, so legal question. The bill summary says O1124 creates a new fund in the city of Annapolis to receive money to help tenants who are displaced from rental units that the city has condemned as unfit and establishes a tenant displacement program that's subject to findings. According to the bill summary, am I correct to believe that the landlord would be responsible for the funds, not the city?
So if the legislation does not include a funding mechanism from the city, for example, there were other ways that this legislation has been suggested. One suggestion was potentially increasing the licensing fees for rental licenses fees such that everyone across the city who rents property contributes to the funds. The issue with creating an unfunded mandate where there's no funds in the fund and there's not a mechanism to fund it, we'll have the fund, and as it says, the fund is set up to receive funds, but I'm not sure what funds are going to go in there. So it doesn't matter what the needs are if we have $0 in the fund, because you can't get blood out of a stone. But those things are all beyond the purview of Office of Law to recommend funding mechanisms and other things like that. That has to come in through legislation, and those are decisions that Office of Law probably does not make or comment upon.
So in this legislation under Title VI, Revenue and Finance, Chapter 630, Special Funds, is it not possible to then add an amendment, which would be Appendage E, and require the funding mechanism that you've just requested? And I'm sorry if there's any noise in my background.
Again, Office of Law does not recommend policy or recommendations based on where we might get funds in the city. That is beyond the scope of the advice I'm able to give. Anyone creating legislation is free to recommend anything or to deal with it offline in terms of finding where pockets of money may exist, but that's beyond my purview as Assistant City Attorney to give advice on funding streams for various legislation.
If I may, the way that the legislation is written, I didn't see anything in here that suggested that the way that it reads is that the Office of Community Services would be the one handling requests for support and handling all of those kinds of payments and stuff.
And I get that process. I think what I'm just confused on is that as it stands, the financing to this fund would be from city budget allocations. So I would, either have to take, from the rental reimbursement, or a fund similar to that, or from donations, grants, or other appropriations by federal, state, and private entities. And so, what I'm concerned about, and what the Office of Law did recommend initially, and then they took it back, is that the funding mechanism, or that there could be language within this, and I believe under basically starting at line 36, we make an amendment under that section, and we just say fines collected from, let's say like inspection failure or the nuisance property management code will go directly to this fund. I think that's the only thing missing. Otherwise, it's requiring that the city or the state or other counterparts directly provide the funding. When I would really like, the true intent is for this to be privately driven. I see the alderman's hand, Alderman Sandemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Line 36 on which page?
I'm sorry, page 2. So line 36, page 1 is the section, but the amendment would be on page 2, line 18.
So for my clarification here, is the goal of the bill essentially to require, is the goal of the legislation to require the landlord to put up the tenant in temporary accommodations while they make necessary repairs to the unit? Or is the goal to have a new program for the city to put the displaced tenant in temporary accommodations while the landlord?
Well, the city is inadvertently involved, because what happens is that a tenant has an issue. They call either the alderperson or the Office of Community Services. And what we were doing was calling either Kevin Simmons, and he would, through relations with the county, try to find funding, or the city for a very short time had access to emergency funding that could only be approved through use by the city manager. And so we were running into these issues where there were several tenants that needed to be displaced but could not be displaced because of lack of funding. Eventually, they would get, either the funding from the city or the county, but it would, just be through teeth pulling. And so it's like, okay, if we can create a fund where, landlords who are not cooperating in the first place pay into this so that their tenants can be housed, that would, that was the end goal. But what I'm seeing here is that more of the burden is being placed on us, and that's not my intent. And particularly because the office is already managing our Office of Community Services program. And so if I was to go along with this as a stand, I would have to pass this and then find funding within the city's budget for a supplemental appropriation to fund this. And then they would create a similar program to that of like the rental assistance program, where people could apply. A landlord probably would apply on behalf of the tenants for relocation.
Or do a separate resolution and etc.
Yeah, but I don't want for the city to have to, carry the bill initially. And so what I'll do is, for the sake of time tonight, is make a motion to postpone this for 30 days or until, I'm sorry, I'll make a motion to postpone until our next Housing and Human Welfare Committee, if I can have support on that.
Yeah, sure, I'll second it. If you don't mind, though, I kind of want to try to feel out some of the background on this a little bit more, Mr. Chair, because this is the first time we've had a chance to kind of discuss this a little bit, if that's all right.
That's totally fine.
So the displacement on this is that in most cases due to lack of property maintenance? In that case, things like mold or like just
Yeah,
unsafe habitation. It's
quality
not
of
due to
life.
like disasters or license. It's not due to like disaster. It's just due to like licensing issues or just unsafe conditions.
Exactly. Yeah, quality of life issues that lead to failed inspections, um, or in some cases, which I don't believe is addressed, but could most certainly be addressed in this is public safety as well. I think that is something that can be taken into consideration.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. We can find another time to connect on this offline to go over it a little bit more. But yeah, do you want to make the motion to postpone until the next meeting, or would you like me to make the motion, Mr. Chairman?
I'll make it. I'll make a motion to postpone until our next Housing Human Welfare Committee meeting on the third Monday in November.
Second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That concludes the agenda unless there is anyone wants to entertain discussion. I do want to let you know, Harry, if you want to introduce any legislation, feel free to use the committee in particular as it relates to housing. I know that's something that you've expressed interest in the past, and so I'm eager to support you there. I know Alderman Schandelmeyer has several pieces of legislation already in the pikes and coming up in final vote, etc. And so, hoping that the committee can just be a conduit for all of our issues.
I do have a
Absolutely.
for good of the order announcement, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
On Saturday, October 26th, the city will be having the Day of the Dead Festival, Dia de los Muertos, and it is going to be from 3 to 8 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's at Maryland Hall, and it's going to have food, drinks, dancing, and just good time. That's all I got.
Thank you. And just to respond to the chair's earlier comment, I do appreciate the offer. And as you said, housing is a critically important issue throughout the city, throughout the country, but certainly it is as well in Ward 1. And would look forward to speaking with the chairman and both members of the committee, all three members of the committee, whatever, soon about this and other important opportunities.
Fantastic. I'll make we'll see each other Monday. Is there anyone that wants to make the motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you all. Have a good night.